Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the third week of the ABI info series. Before we begin, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, PIA Law. They are our platinum sponsors, and without them, we would not be able to do the work that we do here at BIST. I'd like to introduce Lindsay Charles, who's representing PIA Law. She is a partner at McLeish, Orlando. Lindsay's practice is devoted exclusively to plaintiffs' personal injury and wrongful death cases. And in her free time, Lindsay enjoys early morning workouts, skiing, golfing, and taking her dog Austin to the park. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I really appreciate it. I also wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone for allowing us to be here as behalf of the Personal Injury Alliance, but I wanted to introduce two very special speakers who I think are going to provide some very informative information in a very fun way. So the first person I wanted to introduce is Hoong Phan. He is a registered physiotherapist, and he believes that every person is capable of improving their current physical situation. He's very passionate about developing unique strategies through critical analysis and assessment to help his clients achieve their personal goals. This client-centered approach helps to guide his physiotherapy practice. He's constantly and consistently fine-tuning his clients' sessions and discovering new ways to assess their goals despite physical or even mental barriers. His experience in varsity sports and working as a research assistant alongside physiotherapists at the best school, McMaster University, gave him a close look at the role rehabilitation experts play in improving the lives of people with injuries and disabilities. Those experiences shaped his perspective on the importance of health-related quality of life. It has also helped him to choose his career path. So welcome, Hoong. The second person who I'd like to introduce is Kyle Whaley. Kyle graduated from Queen's University in Physical and Health Education program, and he began his career in strength and conditioning with an active population, including athletes from a variety of sports. His passion for adventure and travel took him to a small island in the Pacific where he worked as a teacher, starting and running after-school programs for elementary and high school children. I bet we all wish we were still doing that. After returning to Canada and graduating from physical therapy program at U of T in 2002, he began his career working in spinal cord injury at TRI Lyndhurst Center. His passion for travel has taken him around the globe and afforded him the opportunity to work in Australia and New Zealand, gaining valuable experience in honing his clinical skills in a mix of inpatient, outpatient, and sport environments. Kyle's passion for working with neurological injuries, traumatic brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, and stroke helped him realize his opening his private clinic in 2011 dedicated to the treatment of these types of conditions. Kyle co-owned and directed a niche clinic specializing in the treatment of complex neurological and orthopedic injuries. It was here that he continued to further his skills treating neurological injuries and vestibular disorders while growing a busy practice. In 2016, expansion into a larger treatment facility saw the creation of Propel Physiotherapy. Propel offers services that further enhance treatment programs of all conditions, neurological and orthopedic, in order to reach the physical potential of their clients. Kyle's career has focused on the treatment of traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury. He has spearheaded the use of cutting-edge technology at Propel, including the Kigo. Very sorry if I've mispronounced that. It's a robotic assisted walking device. That's awesome. And the Pons, again, the portable neuromodulation stimulator. That's incredible. Kyle is currently the owner and executive director, as well as a practicing clinician at Propel Physiotherapy. He's an adjunct lecturer at the University of Toronto in the Department of Physical Therapy and a lab clinician for both the MSCPT and Ontario Internationally Educated Physical Therapy Bridging Programs. When he's not doing all of those things and traveling the world, Kyle spends a lot of time with his wife and his two boys. He's always active, whether it's on the ice, on the bike, on water, skiing, or out in the woods. So welcome, Kyle, welcome, Hoong, and we're really excited to hear from you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for that introduction.
I need to shorten that bio. Wow, that's embarrassing. That was too much.
I love knowing all about travel. I mean, Australia and New Zealand, I think that's better than the island. There's no COVID, so smart. Anyways, over to you guys.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening. I think I can share my slides here. And you guys let me know if you can see what I'm seeing right now. Awesome. So yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. I think what's really important to kind of like take a quick step back on is, yeah, it's been like, you know, the last time we presented here was almost a year ago, and you know, we were reflecting the other day, and we were saying, when we presented last time, it was literally one day before the pandemic kind of hit. So we're happy to be back. Obviously, it's in a little bit of a different fashion or a different form, but happy nonetheless. So thank you so much for those wonderful introductions. Those are staged photos of ourselves. We're a lot more, you know, less, well, Kyle's super groomed still, but for me, less groomed. But hopefully one day we'll get back into the barber seat.
Who are those guys?
Yeah, who are those guys? Oh, man, different time. Propel Physiotherapy, what do we do? We're a collective of physiotherapists, massage therapists, registered KINs, exercise therapists. We also have yoga therapy, yoga instructors, and a mindfulness coach. We also have a niche practice of pelvic floor physiotherapy and pediatric physiotherapy. We also offer registered kin and exercise sessions in home and in the community, and pre-COVID, we'll call it, at select gyms or boutique studios. We spoke about the Pons and the Kyogo, so I won't dive into that. So that's a quick snippet of our clinic, our clinical practice, and the types of professionals we have within our four walls. All right, so the big thing here is physiotherapy and post-traumatic brain injury or post-acquired brain injury. I hope at the end of this presentation and a little bit of a talk, we get a chance to understand and really dive into the fact that the brain influences the body, and the body also influences the brain. And if we can wrap our heads around that concept, and we understand that concept, how do we positively influence both or get both going to get the best results for our clients post-traumatic brain injury or acquired brain injury? So some goals for tonight. We want to discuss common physical and neurological issues that arise after an acquired or traumatic brain injury. So we'll go through a little bit of not a laundry list, but some symptomology associated with TBI that we handle and treat in our practice. We want to review some of the physiotherapy guidelines and practices that can be implemented to address these issues. And we're going to try some on for ourselves. We have a scheduled stretch break in the middle of the webinar or this presentation, so no one kind of like dozes off too much. And then the last but not least, we want to take the perspective of movement as a form of medicine during the pandemic. More than ever now, people are still trying to figure out, how do I remain active? How do I remain physically well during this time with so many barriers out there? So we've got a little bit of tips, industry kind of direction for us to go in, and things that are really, really safe and fun to do. So those are hopefully some of the goals for tonight. So after a brain injury, you may experience some or a lot of the following. A lot of our clients do report headaches, anxiety, emotional dysregulation, whole body pain or soreness, and sometimes it's limited to one section of the body, a limb perhaps only in the trunk. We often have clients that report and demonstrate balance dysfunction, dizziness, forms of immobility or decreased mobility, and aberrant movements when we analyze them through a normal movement assessment. And last but not least, some forms of decreased strength and endurance. And this can all be stemming from a central nervous system injury, which is from the brain. Great. So we know all these things, and there's a laundry list of things for us to deal with, but how does physical therapy, movement and exercise help to address this list of issues? And when we kind of break it apart here, we see that if we were to address the pain and soreness and the headaches, we understand that physiotherapists often engage in manual therapy, which is a really fancy way of saying we get our hands on our clients, specifically around some of the soft tissue restrictions, some of the joint restrictions that might be happening at the C-spine, at the T-spine, or even in the lower back. And we perform some stretching maneuvers with them. And in essence, we also engage them with a tailored movement program where it's exercises that help to correct dysfunctional postures associated with acquired brain injury or traumatic brain injury. And we target those areas so that we can make the person as optimal as possible. And we're often coaching our clients in self-pacing and energy conservation strategies and education on activity guidelines. And this is all to help and address some of the pain and soreness you may experience after having a traumatic or acquired brain injury. Modalities. I think a lot of the times people say, like, what is a modality? That's such a general term. So modalities include rostered or registered acts like applying acupuncture, in addition to other forms of electrical modalities that help to relieve pain and soreness in that area of the body. And things like TENS, IFC, those are some of the more passive modalities that we will implement sometimes, but it's always in adjunct with an active, progressive exercise program. And last but not least, we also see here mindfulness and meditation, applying and coaching body scans and breathing awareness. We'll touch base on that in a couple of slides, but I know the next slide kind of dives a little bit deeper into the types of headaches that we often treat. So I won't go into the anatomy or pop quiz anyone here at the table or at the in the presentation, but we often do work with clients that experience tension type headaches and cervicogenic type headaches. You know, after the mechanism of injury that gives off a traumatic brain injury, our clients are often presented with neck pain that can radiate or refer pain into the head and into the back of the eye. So there are different treatment strategies for these types of headaches, and it's important that the clinician has the ability to distinguish between the two of them. You'll see in the diagrams on the left side, I'm not too sure if you guys can see that, but some of the distribution of the pain, it's a little bit different for a tension type headache versus a cervicogenic headache. Tension type headache often has like a band across the forehead, some of the tighter muscles that connect the neck to the base of the skull, whereas the cervicogenic headache can often be on one side of the head, stems from dysfunctional cervical spine posture or movement. And as we can see, it can kind of radiate into the eye and not make it feel that great. So as I said from before, there was a portion of mindfulness that helps us address some of the pain or even chronic pain that people experience. Taking the liberty of kind of bringing up our registered physiotherapist, Kathy Molesky, and she's also a mindfulness coach. On our website, she provides complimentary 3, 5, and 15-minute mindfulness body scans. So instead of listening to me talk for another 3 minutes on a body scan, if everyone has the ability to kind of just find a comfortable spot to sit, you don't need to close your eyes if you don't want to, but just have a listen to how Kathy coaches us through a body scan. And the idea behind the body scan is to practice mindfulness in a controlled manner where you know, you're paying attention to aspects of your body, you're observing it objectively, you're not being judgmental on how your body feels or of what it can and cannot do. And this technique has often helped people living with pain and chronic pain have a successful home or self-management strategy. So I'm hoping this comes up. You guys let me know if this, if you can hear it. Nope.
No, we don't hear it.
Oh, all right. Let's see here. All right, I'll double back to that in a second. In essence, with the body scan, there is a lot of attention paid to different limbs of the body, progressing itself from the feet to the shins to the knees, all the way up the trunk. And at the end of the body scan, a lot of people do have like a sense of decreased pain or soreness. It is quite a useful tool for people to practice on a daily basis. A lot of people practice that right before they go to sleep. I've used it personally myself, especially when my mind's kind of like super busy, and I've had good results from it. All right. In addition to some of the pain and soreness you might experience after an ABI or TBI, we often have balance deficits, dizziness, and immobility. Some of the strategies we've implemented at Propel Physiotherapy is to have our clients practicing their balance strategies and exercises in a safe and controlled environment. Especially during virtual therapy, it's important to make sure that everything around us is safe, and that our setup is good for success, right? What we intend to target is your balance system. So our exercises will incorporate sensation and proprioception. So that's your ability for your body, or for you to understand where your body is in space. We'll incorporate a little bit of vision or taking vision away by closing your eyes or perturbing it. We'll take a look at your vestibular health to see if your inner ear is playing any role in what your balance feels like, or maybe that's a culprit into why there's limitations in your high level balance or your dynamic balance. And we'll also take a look at general strength and conditioning and muscular strength and endurance. The pictures you see on the right side, it just kind of highlights the fact that our physiotherapists and our clinicians work in tandem with one another. We often refer to our yoga therapists and our yoga instructors if our clients are relatively higher functioning with regards to their balance. And as you can see in the top picture, there's a person like practicing yoga off of a chair. So we will help to modify and help to instruct safely different yoga poses and balancing poses off of different setups that are safe and comfortable for our clinicians and our clients. And, you know, not to breeze past the decreased strength and endurance, but some of the strategies we've implemented with improving someone's strength and endurance after a TBI is really just incorporating what they enjoy doing a lot. We understand that a little bit of exercise goes a long way. A lot of exercise is hard to come by. I think that's the guiding evidence behind a lot of the physical activity that we have going on at the clinic. And you know, in general, the setup for any strength and conditioning program, it does not need to be elaborate. And in fact, we encourage the clients and our clients to, you know, take a look at what they have available in their own home. Be realistic with what their space or their setup looks like. Not everyone is going to have a P90X kind of setup at home or an industrial gym at their disposal. So we do incorporate smaller items like resistance bands, small weights, you know, taking into consideration walls or countertops, and modifying the exercises as required. Interestingly enough, we've got a couple of really creative registered kinesiologists who understand the fact that there are huge limitations to trying to engage someone in exercise, and we understand that too, right? We're trying to make you do work to get your body stronger, but in general, maybe you don't enjoy doing those exercises. So it may come in the form as, you know, even a fun walking program outdoors, or a outdoor activity like gardening or lawn care that we can kind of turn into something that we can track, right? And back in the day, and hopefully in the near future, group programs as appropriate. The highlighting thing here is that there is an importance of consistency, discipline, and accountability. And I find that with the setup that we can engage our clients in as clinicians, that portion of discipline and accountability is quite strong. And that's how the results are obtained. So before we go into this video, it's essentially a video that Kyle played last year, actually. And it's how yoga therapy and a yoga class in San Diego back in the day, how it's helped to shape people's well-being after a traumatic brain injury. Can you guys see this? Can you hear it?
But our attendance reporter Amanda Brandeis explains there's a new program in San Diego offering healing through yoga.
I am grateful for each of you having the courage and the will to show up week after week.
Because sometimes showing up can be the hardest part.
Notice how as you breathe in, people are here who understand me or at least are empathetic.
Empathetic to life with traumatic brain injury.
I was seeking all sorts of excitement and danger. I was drinking a whole heck of a lot.
Inhale, arms sweep high. Struggling just to read and write and understand things and make decisions and think things through.
Cat Blue says it feels like having a concussion all the time. The injury started in an abusive relationship and heightened after a bad car accident.
So the impact was pretty hard. He was probably going 50 to 60 miles an hour.
It's part of life. It's the new reality.
Retired Marine Corps veteran Jimmy Works suffered multiple TBIs during combat.
Creating space for gratitude.
They're survivors finding healing through Love Your Brain Yoga.
And then exhale.
The nonprofit offers a free 6-week program in cities across the U.S. Through meditation, gentle yoga, and a discussion group, participants can better cope with their injuries and gain a support base.
There's days where doesn't even feel like I have a problem, and then the next week I can be completely struggling with it.
So I think it's nice to highlight that sentence where he says, you know, there are some days he's not really struggling with it, and then there are other days, there are other weeks where it's like completely, all the symptomology kind of flares up. And I think it speaks a lot to the fact that if we are to engage in some form of, you know, movement or physical activity post TBI or ABI, there does need to be that consistency where like you're doing it on your good days, but you're also doing it on maybe your not so good days. So that cumulative effect is in the positive, right? We know that it's kind of going to be like this throughout point A to point B, but as long as we can almost connect the dots in that, not a regression model or a linear model, but something like that, it's trending upwards or it's trending better. So I really enjoy that video. Oh, perfect. My favorite part. Let's take a mobility break. I won't run you guys through Insanity or P90X or anything like that, but it is good to kind of check in with your body right now. So I've been talking for a fair part of like 20-ish minutes. Even I feel like, you know, I've been talking, I've been squinting at the screen, I've been leaning forward, my back is starting to kind of ache. I want to start off with just a really gentle general neck stretch. We'll start from the top left, where we see the person kind of having their opposite arm behind their back. They're reaching for their opposite back pocket, and then they're gently bringing their head and their neck down towards their front opposite pocket. We'll just hold it there for a nice gentle 15 to 20 seconds, just to kind of like wake everyone up. And remember to take a nice deep breath throughout each one. Got the timer on, don't worry, guys. All right, slowly coming out of it. Then we're gonna go to the opposite side. So when you're doing this stretch, you should kind of feel that connection between the tip of your shoulder blade to the neck area. If anyone's feeling really, really stiff and doesn't want to do it, don't worry about it. You can just check it out. No one's forcing you to do it. Just take a look at what's going on here. But essentially, we're targeting muscles that might become dysfunctional after like looking at a long day of looking at a screen. Good. Come out of it slowly and nicely. The second picture right in the middle, you might not be able to see the nuance, but the person is literally going from a slouched position and sitting. So it kind of looks like their pelvis is posteriorly rotated. Their back is touching the chair. And then they're coming into a nice tall seated position where they're rolling their hips forward and they're almost like proud with their shoulders and their chest. I want us to do that just 10 times together in our seat. I want you guys to feel those little back muscles turning on. And again, if you can't do this, not a problem. Just kind of work through it a little bit or just watch us do it. Good. Okay, and I'll cut to just the last one here. If you guys can get to the edge of the seat, so your back's not really supported by the backrest, we're gonna have our hands on the side of our head. We're gonna think about sitting up nice and tall. Our elbows are flared out towards the sides of the room as if they're pointing to the sides of the walls, right? And I want us to kind of point our sternum or our chest bone and our ribs towards the ceiling gently. And we're gonna come back into center. So it almost feels like an exaggerated morning stretch. Let's do 2 more of those. Good, it's like a 2 to 3 second hold. And then 1 more. Try not to hold your breath. Try to move through your chest and your mid back and not as much through your neck. Good, and relax. So even quickly doing just movements these are more so like ergonomic kind of desk movements and not particular in any case. It's just like a global movement for your spine and your body. After like 2 minutes of just shelling those out, and besides looking funny, you know, things happen with your body, even microscopic little things, right? Tissue extensibility is a little bit different. Your awareness to your posture is obviously there. I just asked you to do a bunch of things. Maybe your heart or your blood is flowing a little bit better. You've just been asked to move your body in kind of new manners that maybe you don't do on a daily basis. And on top of it, your energy will increase even slightly. And this was just after kind of like 2 minutes worth of, to be fair, global spine movements. Okay. So that's kind of the take home message. If that's what a little can do, imagine what a little bit more can do. Okay. And I'll pass it over to Kyle to kind of talk about the benefits of movement and the benefits of exercise.
Thanks so much, Hoong. Really appreciate that. Nice to meet everybody. I'm just looking at the Q&A in the chat. It looks like Alex has mentioned someone has their hand up. Does somebody have a question? Q&A.
It looks like we have one. Would you like me to help her unmute herself? Or would you like me to encourage her to write her question in the chat box?
Yeah, if you can write it. And then what we'll do is, why don't I get through this and we'll answer. I was answering some while Hoong was chatting, and maybe Hoong can have a look while I'm chatting.
Perfect.
If that works. And I want to be careful. I can talk a lot. Thank you so much, everybody. I get the fun stuff. I get to take over and talk about the benefits of exercise. And at the end of the day, exercise makes you feel good. There's a lot of complicated descriptions and reasons why, but I think we'll keep it really simple. We know that exercise makes your mood feel better. There's a lot of chemicals that float around and are produced in your brain when you exercise, and that doesn't have to be intense exercise. It can be exercise, just movement like Hoong was just doing. Weight control. Exercise can help control your weight, and having a kind of optimal weight is always good for your joints as well as your mental health. Exercise combats and improves a lot of known diseases that are physical and mental. So we know heart disease and diabetes and stroke, which unfortunately there's an increased risk of those conditions after having a traumatic brain injury. Exercise can help to mitigate or fight those risks, and increases the body's relaxation response. So if you can get a good bout of exercise in, you tend to sleep better and your system comes down to a much lower resting state. And it improves your cognition, so your ability to think, so your ability to remember, new things, your ability to predict new things and multitask. And I'll talk about that a little further. Hoong, can you give me just shoot me next? Awesome, thanks. It boosts your energy. We know that exercise improves the feeling of fatigue. We all know what it feels like waking up in the morning, and especially, our clients after a traumatic brain injury. One of the biggest complaints we get is they're tired all the time. It improves your endurance and your fitness. And so your cardiovascular fitness is the ability of your heart and your lungs to keep up with what your body is demanding of it. Walking a flight of stairs, picking up your kids, picking up your grandkids, going to the park and hanging out with a couple of friends, fingers crossed. Hopefully we can do that this summer. We talked about sleep. It does improve your sleep. It helps normalize your sleep patterns. It improves your sexual function. Again, that is through circulation. By improving your blood flow, it improves the blood flow to everything. It's your first line of defense for chronic, or what we call now persistent pain, which is also very common after traumatic brain injury. That's pain that just keeps going and going and going. And I'm sure everybody could speak to that. So the benefit of exercise, the fancy term that's being kind of thrown around these days, is neurogenesis. And all that means is creating new connections in your brain or new nerves. Exercise stimulates the growth of the little tips of those, and so they make new connections. And when you make new connections, you get all those improvements we just talked about. Your mind is clearer, you remember more things, you sleep better, and you have more energy. And then it's also really good for pain. So exercise is our first line of defense for, as we mentioned, chronic or persistent pain. This is an infographic on some of the stuff we just talked about. Some people may have heard about the runner's high. That used to be a term that was used only for endurance athletes, so marathon runners that were running in long distances, kind of 40, 50, 60 kilometers. Now we know that that kind of runner's high, or the releases of endorphins, you don't have to be running to get that. So you can do regular exercise, you can do yoga, you can do stretching, you can do Tai Chi. Serotonin is a feel good. The top left there, the gentleman, he looks just, or the girl, I can't tell. They look a little bit too excited to be at work, it looks like. Put a tie on. So serotonin is a feel good chemical in your brain, and that's released when you exercise. Your brain volume and cognitive function. So your brain gets bigger, and that's from those new connections, the neurogenesis you see at the top right. And with a bigger brain, surprise, surprise, our memory and some of our brain function improves. Creativity goes along with it as well. What are your options for exercise? So this is, I grew up as a young guy, participation. I can't see anyone in the crowd there, but I'm sure some people remember Hal and I can't believe forgetting their names. Hal and, anyways.
Joanne, yeah.
Joanne, Hal and Joanne. Yeah, remember? So participation, the challenge with prescribing exercise is we've gone in circles. We've come full circle about 3 times since the 80s. Oh my goodness, you need to do really intense exercise, like 45 minutes to an hour, 3 to 5 times a week. You got to get your heart rate up at 65 to 75% of your heart rate max. So what we know now is that's actually not necessarily true. What you've got to do for some people is just more than what you're doing now. And I've got a great slide coming up, a short video that I'll show, but the options are for what you're looking at is whatever you're doing. So if you're in a chair, in a wheelchair, you're wheeling. Or you're moving whatever limbs you can. If you're walking, you're going for a hike, cross-country skiing, tobogganing, gardening, get out and just work outside. some other options we talked about before are yoga, dance, Zumba, Tai Chi. I had a question earlier in the chat was, how much yoga should I be doing? Well, it's really dependent on, one, what your goals are. So do you want to feel better? Do you want to improve your flexibility? Do you want to get stronger? And two, what your tolerance is. It's always a balance. We don't want exercise. We all know exercise, or certainly some of us can appreciate it does hurt at times. But we want to balance, some short-term pain, especially if you've got chronic pain. You're going to manage some of that pain while you're exercising for the long-term payoff after. So all of those great things I talked about, feeling better, thinking better, sleeping better, and having more energy. This is one of our exercise physiologists who's got some great options. They're online. I'm pretty sure these are free on, yeah. So Shreya does free movement exercise. She's on Instagram if anybody has it. There's also, you can find it on our website. There are a handful of cardio exercises. So we've got an intense one outside here on the right. Hoong, you can go, we can play that if it works.
Yeah, I just had actually a question on, and kind of a statement question stating like, these are all great ideas, and some of these programs sound pretty ideal, but if you're on ODSP or resources are tight, like how do we engage in that and further be part of it, right? This is a great way to kind of maybe point your flashlight in the direction of complementary services and complementary guidance from a reputable clinic, in addition to ensuring that what you're seeing on maybe it's social media, maybe it's on a website, making sure that there is someone that can respond to the questions on it, right? It's always kind of disheartening when you see this awesome exercise program laid out and then there's not really an author. Whereas I think a lot of it now, when there's authorship out there, you can directly message someone and then get more information. So be on the lookout for that. I know just from a strategy and standpoint of how a lot of our clinics are doing, a lot of people are offering complimentary guidance. And it's really a way to kind of give back to the communities and the people and the clients that continue to, come to the clinic. So be on the lookout for that.
Thanks, Hoong. Oh, that was hardcore, Shreya. Awesome. Excellent. So options for exercising with family is always important. Get the kids involved, whether it's kicking a soccer ball around or just making your way to the local park. There's always lots of stuff sometimes that's open. I'm looking out my front door at our park. There's a handful of dogs. I don't know if we have any dog owners. Dogs are a great opportunity to get outside and be active. Well, thank goodness for a lot of us, the snow's melted. If you like the snow, unfortunately, it's likely not coming back. Fingers crossed. And if you don't like the snow, then we're in good shape here. We're headed into nothing but sun. So it's a great opportunity to get outside. There's lots of outdoor trails. You can take place in green spaces near your home, or just if you don't have green space, Shreya's got some exercises you could see in the left, although it wasn't a video. There's lots of workouts at home, and there are tons of those free resources online, depending on what you're looking for, and we can certainly answer some of the questions in the Q&A. There's virtual group sessions, so there's a lot of different places, including some of the public community centers and city community centers that offer complimentary introductions to some of these. Hoong was great to put together this slide. So as of February 26th, so basically 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, there are 10 designated community centers that are available. These may or may not be in your area. My understanding is you have to have, Hoong, do you have to have a note? It's only for people with some type of disability that are going to benefit from using the space. Is that correct?
Yeah, my understanding from all these community centers is your health professional needs to create some sort of letter for you stating that you are a person that requires, ongoing movement, and the movement and the physical activity is a part of your recovery. It's a way of the city to really look out for people who do need more of like a structured area to perform movement and may not have that space at home or the community or the green space to do all the things that they need to do. There are obviously like a little bit more restrictions on who's going in, but from what I understand and from the clients that we have that have access to these gyms or rec centers, they're able to bring in their PSWs or RSWs or support staff. So that it's not just, you're going in by yourself and you don't have the same kind of supports as before. This is only for, Toronto area. I believe there's similar opportunities in other regions. I'm just not confident in putting it on a slide right now, but certainly we can look into that as well.
Thanks, Hoong. Okay, guys, this is just indulge us just for a second here. This is a really cool 23.5 hours, it's called. It's put together by a physician, I believe he's in the Toronto area. The take-home message is really great. Just watch. We're just psyching you out. Hang on. Is the audio on, Hoong? Oh no. Oh, bummer. Plugin's not working. That's okay.
I know sometimes there's trouble.
A lot of things from
There you go.
training to eating more fiber to having a good social network.
Can you hear it?
Keep turning it up. Yeah, that was it.
Less, drinking less,
Yep.
smoking less,
Awesome.
controlling your blood pressure, cholesterol, and so on and so forth. So all these things are incredibly important, and I wouldn't want you to minimize your efforts in any one category. But I want to know what comes first. What has the biggest impact? What has the biggest return on investment? What makes the biggest difference to your health? So I did my research. And I found an answer, at least for me, and it's tricky because, all these things are sort of overlapping. But I picked out this intervention and because of its breadth, it worked for so many different health problems. And that's what I found so cool about it. So just to kind of walk you through a quick list. So this intervention in patients with knee arthritis who receive 1 hour of treatment 3 times a week reduced their rates of pain and disability by 47%. In older patients, it reduced progression to dementia and Alzheimer's by around 50%. For patients at high risk of diabetes and coupled with other lifestyle interventions, it reduced progression to frank diabetes by 58%. Following over 10,000 Harvard alumni for over 12 years, those that had the intervention had a 23% lower risk of death than those who didn't get the treatment. It's the #1 treatment of fatigue. And of course, the kind of outcome of choice, or my favorite outcome, is quality of life, which is really all of the above and really about making your life better. And this treatment has been shown over and over again to improve quality of life. So the question is, what's the medicine and what is 23 and a half hours? So the medicine was exercise, mostly walking, so not triathlons. And let me just put it a different way. I think what I'm asking you to do is, if you think about your typical day, so there's 24 hours, and so you might spend most of your day, this varies obviously, but couch surfing, sitting at work, obviously sleeping. And what the evidence that I'm going to show you kind of tells me is the best thing you can do for your health is to spend half an hour being active, maybe an hour. And that if you can do that, you can realize all the benefits I've described in the previous slides. So if exercise is a medicine, what's a dose? So when I think of dose, I think of how long, how often, and how intense. I'm going to give you a slightly mixed message, but essentially more activity is better. But I must say the rate of return seems to decline after 20 or 30 minutes a day. So if you're being active less than 150 minutes a week, or more if you're a kid, an hour a day if you're a kid, my flag goes up in the clinic. So my personal take on this is that the literature draws a very broad brush, and so we see big differences when somebody goes from not doing anything to doing something, and after that the return is more granular. So if we took the Nurses Health Study, women who went from zero activity to just 1 hour a week reduced their heart disease rates by almost half. So you can break it down, so it can be 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes if you want to do 30 minutes of exercise, so it can be broken into 3. If you're only going to do it if it's pre-booked with friends, I have couples that take a half-hour walk every morning or evening to organize their life. A dog is a great walking coach. The data is showing 67% of dog walkers achieve the 150 minutes a week just with the dog walking. And finally, of course, your commute, getting off stop early, taking the stairs, and so on and so forth. The next way to think about it is the reverse. So what I call sitting disease. We know that being sedentary is bad for your health, but a researcher named Leonard Veerman wanted to quantify this, and he did so down in Australia in a big study they did there. They found, compared with persons who watch no TV, those that spend a lifetime average of 6 hours a day watching TV can expect to live about 5 years left. I mean, that's incredible. But then I think, who watches 6 hours a day of TV? And it turns out the average adult in the USA spends about 5 hours a day watching TV or screens. So I find this fascinating that we never think of the TV as something that's bad for our health, but clearly it's as powerful as many other risk factors for chronic disease. So I'm going to finish by asking you a question. And this may have some personal challenges for you. So, you might be very busy with work or kids or both, and you may be in pain or have other priorities. But my question to you is, can you limit your sitting and sleeping to just 23 and a half hours a day? So whether it's hitting the gym and attaining fitness goals, or walking the dog, or taking the stairs, get out there and be active. Thanks again to 24 Hour Fitness for bringing you this message.
I think that's kind of summarizes like where we're coming from. And I think what's really interesting about that video is like, I feel like within your day, if you could break up 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, or accumulation of 30 minutes worth of some sort of activity that you really like to do. And in this case, it's walking, and across the board, 30 minutes a day of walking has shown such benefits to your physical body. And then we spoke about how your brain also changes and has that benefit as well. So in the end, I hope the one of the first slides we talked about, which was how your brain influences your body and how your body influences your brain, resonates with people who are watching this. And without going into too much detail, like our clinicians are always ready and happy to kind of point people in the right direction. I know it's been a challenging, couple of months, a year for a lot of people to get out there and get active, but there are so many interesting and creative ways that you can get those minutes in, and it does not always have to be shaped in the form of quote unquote formal exercise. So,
Thanks so much, guys. We've got some time. I'm wondering.
I'm just going to go through the questions. Sorry, I haven't.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I've been glancing. Some of these we should probably maybe answer.
Maybe privately.
Maybe privately. What we can do, Melissa. I'm wondering if you can put our contact information up. There's some that are pretty detailed and would just take some. And are probably probably best, I mean, without naming it, well, it's an open chat, we can see. Yes, our physios we do work with functional neurological disorders, FND was one of the questions. There's another one there that looks like it got pushed from an anonymous attendee. It's quite a long one. I'm wondering if we can maybe link us up, leave Hoong and I's email addresses, and we can have a chat and answer some of those.
My apologies, I was muted. Yes, I can definitely do that. I'm just getting your proper email addresses now, and I'm going to put them in the chat box so that they can connect with you privately.
Great.
So just for everyone who's listening, I know that we just talked about how the people who are asking questions with the Q&A box or with the chat box, their names are popping up. I just want to let you know that your names are not visible to anybody outside of this meeting. So you're going to hear a lot of, especially when I'm answering your questions or I'm directing your questions to a presenter, I will be referring to you as just a member, and I will be referring to your gender as they. And that's just to continue to keep our confidentiality. So in this case, it really is an anonymous person. But I'm going to, like I said, I'm just going to type in both Hoong and Kyle's email addresses into the chat box for you to go ahead and send your question to them directly.
Our pleasure. Helen, thanks everybody. Last time we did it was in person at this great little cafe on St. Clair, not far from me. It's so weird. I had to move over to my son's room and I was losing the light outside. Oh my goodness. Hopefully we can do this in person soon.
Yeah.
There's our locations. Okay, that was one of the questions. Cool. Great. Any more questions before we? I don't see any new ones. Nope. Great.
So there is.
I think in general, actually, yeah, there was just almost like a comment question from a member, and it was just asking like, how hard am I supposed to push myself? And I think that's a great question, right? It's all nice and dandy when we're saying, yeah, try 30 minutes of this, but then start to feel the symptoms, or you start to get bogged down by some of the flare-ups that you might be experiencing. I think it's depending on the chronicity of your injury and if there's any other complex orthopedic issues or vestibular issues that you're dealing with, my answer might be a little bit more titrated towards that. I think it's important when you are exercising, you're essentially in charge of your own body, right? Whether or not you've sustained an ABI, TBI, or some sort of complex injury. When you have the ability to be a little bit more aware of what symptomology will set you further back throughout the week, that's when I coach my clients to kind of do a self-check-in during their movement and be like, okay, maybe I don't need to do that third set of those squats or lunges that were really bothering me and really creating like an intense amount of pressure in my brain. And I think it's important to really, really kind of take a step back and coach the kind of the harm versus hurt education. Sometimes we do get bogged down with, just because our body feels a certain way and it's feeling super sore, it does not necessarily mean you're prolonging or making certain body parts or your condition worse. Certainly if you've had the experience of being sore after an exercise or having that delayed onset muscle soreness, you might be able to appreciate that a little bit more and then use that as a guide, because acquired brain injury and TBI is so individually based and it's on a case-by-case basis. I would say creating a routine and listening to your body for the symptomology is super important. And you can really only trust yourself and the guidance of your clinicians at that point.
So 2 more questions popped up in the Q&A. One of them is, do you use the Buffalo treadmill protocol to set an exercise program for clients with TBIs? That's the first one.
I can answer that one, huh? So the Buffalo concussion treadmill test, yes, we do use that to establish a baseline in some of our clients that can tolerate that test. So obviously some of our traumatic brain injury clients, they can't get on a treadmill to walk that fast and get their heart rate up to a point that may tease out those symptoms. Again, remember the Buffalo concussion treadmill test. This may be a reminder. It's really trying to tease out the physiological symptoms. It was originally developed in concussion, so a mild traumatic brain injury, the physiological symptoms. So what about the concussion is aggravated by an increase in my heart rate and the overall working of my system? And then what we do is we drop down those numbers slightly, and we use that to determine the exercise program. That was a long-winded answer.
I'm just seeing the follow-up kind of on the original question. Thanks for clarifying to this member. Thanks for clarifying for me from this member. And it's the question was more so directed to the symptoms, how far to let the symptoms progress, not necessarily muscle soreness. And then I think the follow-up kind of comment is there a point where you should push through symptoms to progress? That's a really, really good question. I think from a physical therapy standpoint, like we're always looking out for the client's safety. So if your symptomology is affecting your safety, my clinical answer to my clients would be, I would not push through that symptom. Even if, so the one thing that we need to remember is perhaps there is like a chronic symptom, pain, that's an easy one to kind of pick out that does get often flared up from exercising. The idea is like, if there is that chronic pain that you're experiencing, the gains that you get from the disciplined exercises and the accountability and all that stuff will be outweighing the short-term kind of like experience of pain that you are getting.
Okay, we've got headaches here. This is the clarification, right? And that's another good point. So that actually depends on the nature of the headache. Hoong had a couple of slides early on. There's a cervicogenic type headache, which is actually coming from the joints and the muscles, as opposed to a blood flow issue. Listen, if getting your heart rate up sends your headache through the roof, then we'll look at keeping your heart rate a sub-symptom threshold.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, and then to be fair, if it is like a cervicogenic headache, perhaps it's an activity modification on like what you're doing exercise-wise, where you can find more of a neutral spine or a supported spine, so that you can still get those muscles active, the meaningful muscles active, and then still accomplish your goals. And to take it back even one more notch, from a physical therapy practice perspective, there's a lot of exercises that do strengthen and mobilize the neck if it is coming from that cervicogenic perspective. So
the pool, just to add to that, this has been a really tough time for people that use the pool as a means of exercise and or pain control. The pools are closed. It's most of them anyways, certainly in the GTA. It's a real bummer, but here's to hoping they may be open soon, and if not, things will warm up and people can get outside and into open water, beaches and stuff. Some great questions, everybody. Yeah. Great comments, great questions. People shared a lot of excellent information.
Yeah, we still have a few more moments. If anybody does have any questions or requires any clarification on anything that we've talked about today, if you don't mind, just for a moment, I'm just going to go back and read some of the questions and answers that were in the chat, just for people who are watching later on, watching the recorded version.
All right.
So one of the questions was, where is Propel Physiotherapy located? Mr. Whaley says, we have 2 locations. One is in Etobicoke at 1 Evo Road off the 427, and one is in Pickering at Kingston Road and Dixie Road. And if you go on to their website, which is posted right here, www.propelphysiotherapy.com, you should be able to find a detailed map of where each of their locations are. And you can also email them at info@propelphysiotherapy.com, and someone there can help you as well to navigate to the location. Oops. So I went to widescreen there. And then another question that I think we touched on just really quickly, somebody brought it up, I believe it was you, Kyle, but someone had asked, are there options for people with who are receiving ODSP? So Kyle responded, there are some options for ODSP clients, and if required, they can be forwarded to members after the presentation. So I think that, you know, if you do require any information, feel free to connect with me, myself, at connections@bist.ca, or again, you can email info@propelphysiotherapy.com. And then as a follow-up to that, the member asked about other therapies that were available to people who are on ODSP and who may not be able to acquire coverage. And so Hoong says, there are some wonderful complementary programs available. Propel Physiotherapy has an exercise physiologist named Sharia, and her email is Sharia, SHRIYA, @propelphysiotherapy.com. And she posts exercise ideas on social media. So just for our members who may not be able to see the chat box.
And in addition, sorry, just to add to that, we're going to use social media or technology to our advantage, especially during these days. If there are recommendations or requests, even, a lot of our clinicians are fairly active on those platforms. And, we've got enough requests from like, hey, can you show me how to do this if, I'm limited to a chair? And that's how our chair yoga program came to be. Or can you show me how to do this, without having to move my head back and forth so much so that I don't perturb my headaches? Sure, we can come up with a modification. And I think that's kind of the nice part about that social media platform. Sometimes it does feel like a little bit, all out there and yeah, everyone's watching, but certainly, if you contact us directly, we'll be happy to try and make it work with you guys.
Thank you. So I see one more question just popped up, and the member says, suggestion, ideas for when you are walking and your head after an ABI feeling like it is a balloon waving back and forth. What tools, I guess she's asking, would you suggest using things like walking poles or special headbands, or what are your thoughts about?
I saw that. Is that if that's a question? So I think that the challenge is the feeling like your head is waving back and forth like a balloon. That can be coming from a number of things, and really having a health professional make sure you don't have a vestibular issue that's very treatable. So it's really hard for us to make a recommendation. I can give you a great example. I've been given talks like this for a long time, and it was about 10 years ago. A gentleman was like, oh my goodness, every time I roll over in bed or get up from a chair or turn my head to the side, the whole room starts spinning and I get vertigo. I got to drop down on my knees. That's actually a specific vestibular condition that can happen after a traumatic brain injury. And it really needs to be assessed by a physiotherapist. So it's somebody's called it bobblehead. Yeah. That could be as easy as neck strengthening exercises, walking poles, or it could be as complicated as having a full vestibular assessment by a physiotherapist and treatment there.
I like the bobblehead comment.
Yeah.
I kind of do too.
I find it interesting sometimes too, like just from like a physio's perspective, we're often, like Kyle said, like we want to try to get right to the root points, and we often sometimes forget, like it may be as simple as taking a look at, how is your biomechanics for your feet? Are you wearing like supportive shoes? Maybe that's not addressing the issue directly, but taking the sum of all things that can help that issue, it might actually be more therapeutic. Especially if you're in a situation where you just can't get in to be formally assessed. That is kind of the best way to get to the root answer, is a formal assessment, and to see if your quote unquote bobblehead issues are stemming from vestibular or central nervous system.
Something else to point out that's probably worth it now is this. We've always been doing this, but certainly since the pandemic, we do full assessments virtually. So yeah, it works in a pinch, and if you're really struggling, we can do a physiotherapy assessment over a Zoom, a secure Zoom call like this. So, but sometimes we offer complimentary 15-minute consultations as well. Again, you can email into info@Propel Physiotherapy or call the clinic. There's only one number directly. It's at the bottom of all those. And you can tell the front office, I'm hoping to get a complimentary consultation, and they'll set it up with one of our therapists.
That's amazing. That's really good to know. Looks like our members are thankful too.
Awesome. Great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Thanks
the
so much for
pandemic is
coming out.
really, yeah, and you as well. I really appreciate you coming out and lending your expertise and taking the time to answer some questions and give such an informative presentation for all of our members.
Great. It's our pleasure.
I'm just kind of peeking. Let's see the time. So I'll give it like another minute. If anybody has any questions, I'll kind of put the pressure on you.
No pressure. You can always email us too. If you
We
forget.
got a question.
We
got a
52
question
seconds.
here.
Nice.
Listen, I'll let you answer it. They want to know if you can copy the chat in the panel.
So we don't copy anything that's happening in meetings, just because there are members' names. So what you can do is you can use the little, there's a little, I don't know what that's called, but it's like a scroll button, and you can find what you're trying to copy and just write it down. The alternative, again, you can email me, connections@bis.ca, CONNECTIONS@BIST.ca, and I will be happy to answer any of your questions and give you any information you may need. And I also want to thank you for asking first.
That also goes for Hoong and I. Again, send any questions you have, especially specific ones, to us directly. I think you put our email addresses up as well, Melissa, or send it to the info@Propel Physiotherapy.
Okay, so I think that might be it. Let me just scroll back down. We're getting a lot of thank yous. Okay. So yeah, thank you for everybody for coming to today's third ABI Info series. And thank you again to Hoong Phan and Kyle Whaley for, again, such an informative presentation. I'm sure that everybody has learned so much. And yeah, I really look forward to, oh, sorry, I thought a question came in, my apologies. It's just another thank you, but I didn't want to
Awesome.
do that.
Thanks, everybody. We really
Thank
appreciate
you so
that.
much. Yeah,
We'll
we
see you.
appreciate
We'll
it.
see you maybe next year.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Thank
Lovely.
you.
Our pleasure. Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye.